For the fourth time in 5 years, the Giants will not be participating in the postseason, although Big Blue did finish the season on somewhat of a high note, winning 7 of their final 10 regular season games. A much different ending compared to that 0-6 start. Giants' turnover differential was ridiculous this year, 31st in the NFL. Their offense, pathetic. Their defense actually finished 8th in the league. Ross, the job that Tom Coughlin did, winning 7 of the final 10 games, how do we look at him in this coaching staff?
Impressive. Clearly, the players still play for him. Clearly, his message still resonates. I mean, you know, they won 7 of their last 10 games with their franchise quarterback playing at a totally inept level. I mean, you would talk about tough to do in the NFL. To win 7 out of 10 when your quarterback is playing terribly is very difficult, but yet they found a way. I think this was as good a job as Tom Coughlin's done in quite some time if you look at the last 10 games.
Howard, you're around this team all the time. Would you agree with that, the way the guys are still responding to him?
I think he did a great job. I think he did a great job considering the offensive line. I don't think he had 5 starters that stayed together more than 2 or 3 games in a row throughout the entire season. You got guys, you got rookies in the game, you got 3rd and 4th year guys who haven't seen the field. It's so hard to play a game from an offensive standpoint when you can't get anything going and you're not really sure what's going to happen from your offensive line standpoint. Your quarterback's getting hit. Your receivers aren't catching balls. Your defense is playing great, but they're playing on short fields over and over again. 9 returns for touchdowns against that defense. He did a good job.
You know, I mean, Gary, Tom Coughlin, we commend him for the end of that season, as well we should. But they still missed the postseason 4 or 5 years, so something has to change, right?
Yeah, I mean, we can say he did a great job, you know, keeping the team from quitting over the final 10 weeks of the season. But let's face it, you know, where was he the first 6 games when they couldn't win a game? And then they only had 1 big game all year when they were 4-6, and they lost that game to the Cowboys. So I think I'd hold off on saying that he did a really great job.
Would you make a change with him?
No, I think he deserves to come back because he's won 2 Super Bowls in 10 years, and any Giant fan, and certainly Giant management, would have signed up for that when they hired him in 2004. But he has a really strange record as coach of the Giants. The only 2 years out of the 10 that he's been here that the Giants have won even 1 playoff game are the 2 years they went on to win the Super Bowl. The other 3 times he's made the playoffs, the Giants were 1 and done, and he didn't make the playoffs 5 other times. So obviously the bottom line is he put 2 trophies in the lobby of the Giants facility. But if you look at the whole body of work over 10 years, I think the Giants, for a lot of the other years, have underachieved.
Well, Ross, what's the change then? Because you can't just keep it status quo after a year like this, can you?
No, I mean, they're going to make some changes. Clearly, the personnel. I think Howard hit on it with the offensive line. I think the defense and the defensive coaching staff is probably intact. I think the 2 areas that the Giants and the management will consider, that's the sense I got, you know, from hearing John Mara and Jerry Reese speak, that perhaps they were going to lean on Coughlin to make some changes on the offensive coaching staff, maybe even the special teams coaching staff, given the year that they had in that regard as well. So to me, ultimately, it comes down to one thing. They got to fix Eli. Do they think that Kevin Gilbride is the best guy to fix Eli, or do they think somebody from the outside could do a better job?
Here's the other thing. You know, the Giants may want Tom Coughlin back, Howard, but what if they want to make changes to that coaching staff? Is Tom Coughlin going to be okay with those changes?
You know what? If I'm Jerry Reese, I come in, I sit down, I take an evaluation of everything. I don't just look at the coaches. I look at all the players, and I realize I got some holes to fill. That's partly on me. I got to figure out how to get all these guys, these free agents, these 10 or 12 guys that won't be on the team, my draft picks together. Then I got to look at Eli, and I got to, you know, ask an honest question. It's been okay, but has it been great? Like, how can I get more production out of Eli? Is that a Gilbride problem? Is that an Eli problem? And I got to go back and talk to him. Now, Coach Gilbride is going to make an argument. Look what I'm playing with. Where are these guys? If they leave the Giants, are they still in the league? What am I working with? And then Jerry Reese is going to say you got Hakeem Nicks, you got, you know, Victor Cruz, you got all these guys. You got to make plays. It's going to be a big argument.
I want to go back to Eli in a moment, but just in this sense, Howard, if Jerry Reese makes the decision that Kevin Gilbride should be gone, and he says, Tom, you're going to have to change the offensive coordinator, is there any chance that Coughlin says, if you want me as your guy, you're going to have to keep Gilbride? I
don't think there's any chance of that. I think Coach Coughlin understands that he feels like he had a tough year this year. A lot of things went wrong. He is the head coach. He's the manager of the team. He's not an offensive coordinator. He's not a defensive coordinator. He's the head coach. So if a change has to come, he may love Gilbride, but I think he'll let the change happen.
Ross, is Eli on notice this next season? Can he go through, let's say the first 8 weeks he looked like he did this year. Can you continue to trot him out there? Is there a chance that we're looking over his shoulder early in this next season?
I don't think early in this next season, but I think if it gets to the midway point of the season and he's still struggling, I think there will start to be some people that wonder if perhaps they should give somebody else a chance. I know that sounds borderline sacrilegious, but he was terrible, and he was bad at the end of the 2012 season as well. They drafted Ryan Nassib for a reason. Obviously, Nassib was to be the backup, but if Eli really starts to struggle, I don't think that they would make a change. I think people will start to talk about them making a change.
I think we might get the answer to that question based on what the Giants do in the offseason with Eli's contract. But there has been some talk about extending him to get some cap relief. If they don't do that, and he's got a couple of years to go on his contract now, if they don't extend him now, that might be an indication. Let's take a wait and see here before we make any more of a financial commitment to him.
Well, here's the thing, though. I mean, for the Giants, do we think this is an easy fix, Gary? Are we going into next season expecting them to just all of a sudden be a team we think can win the NFC East again? Or could we be looking at a prolonged period of losing for Big Blue?
Well, I think if Eli had a typical Eli season, considering how bad the NFC East was this year, I think they would have made the playoffs. But he had a terrible season, and no team can overcome its quarterback, its franchise quarterback, throwing 27 interceptions. I think the big question here is this the start of the downward trend in Eli Manning's career, or was this an aberration? And as we're sitting here, you know, in the week after the season has ended, I don't think we have the answer to that question.
Do you have the answer
because
to
he
it
was
now?
bad from beginning to end this year.
I think it was an aberration. I think there's more of the talent, not just Eli's throwing the ball, but I think it's more of the talent all the way around, not being able to run the ball, not being able to, you know, I've watched games where they were not even able to pick up the blitz, guys running free at the quarterback over and over again. And in the final game, unfortunately, thank goodness it was the final game, he gets tweaked on the ankle. That could have been first game of the season, many hits he took.
Well, we'll watch Eli, see if he can bounce back, but I think we expect some sort of change, and we'll document it this offseason for the Giants here on This Week in Football.